as promised, we're joined right now by John Roman. He's the president of ProTech. DefendYourHead.com is their website. And it's a pleasure, John, to have you join me. You're a fellow former NFL player, former New York Jet. Actually, one of my favorite leagues professionally that ever existed was the World League. And you played for the Philadelphia Bell. But welcome to Unsafe Spaces.
Well, thank you, Randy. It's a great pleasure to be with you, and great pleasure to be with a great former offensive lineman. I'm happy to have put the helmet on, but you played at a lot higher level, so thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. Now, ProTech and Defend Your Head. Can you give us a little background, a little sketch on how it got started and specifically what it is?
Yeah, sure. About 5 years ago now, I had the opportunity to meet with an inventor of a product known for many, many years during the mid-'90s, long after at least I was retired, Randy, that had created a product called the ProCap that a number, speaking of being former players, had offered some pretty strong testimony to the safety attributes of that product during that era. But as we all know, looking back, the product aesthetically was unappealing. That's probably a nice way to say it. And so what resonated with myself and some of my colleagues was indeed the safety attributes of the product's ability to absorb and dissipate initial impact collision, and the testimony itself from the players that they felt better, and that many of them had not suffered any TBIs or, as we would define them today, concussions post wearing the product. And so with that as a introduction, our team has come in and we've redesigned that product. It now covers 95% of the helmet, so you're getting entire coverage, as opposed to the old product, which was really more of a crown cover of the helmet.
Right. Well, I remember, what was it? Mark Kelso, Steve Wallace, several players in the league wore that old cap look.
They did, and I've had the opportunity to visit briefly with Steve and Mark Kelso. I've known on and off for about the last 4 years, and it's, I always say it's better for anyone who's really super interested to speak to these guys directly. I don't know that I could do it justice in the way that they describe their ability to play on with that product. And we're so entrenched in wearing the product, notwithstanding the fact that they were ridiculed for the look of it. So what we've done, Randy, since then, and over the last 3 years now, we'll have over 250 schools wearing our product. This season, probably over 25 D1 schools. Is we've redesigned the product to resemble the helmet. It's vented so that it matches the venting of the helmet. We have a spring-loaded attachment system which allows the cover now to move independent of the helmet, and that's a very important design mechanism that's allowed us to guide impact collision away. And that's why we think this ancillary energy management system is enhancing the helmet's inner shell technology, and we believe the safest way to play the game today.
Yeah, I noticed that in studying on this last year during the 2017 season, you had some pretty high-profile teams believing in your product. I mean, LSU, North Carolina State, and Penn State got very involved. Not only did their kids wear them, they were very involved in the study themselves as to the benefits and what actually happens when you do or don't wear this product.
Well, Randy, that study is a very interesting study, and I'll try to make a long story short because a lot of people thought that we as a company or myself contacted Penn State and asked for that study, and it actually was the other way around, which has allowed us, I think, today to wear some pretty white gloves as it relates to that study, meaning that it was truly independent. We did not pay for the study. They did not share the testing protocols. They did not share anything at all about their testing, which was, by the way, over 3 years. And it was let's put it this way, it got my heartbeat racing a little bit, Randy, during that period because, the jaded board member or interested party might have said, how could you expose your product to a process that you weren't, familiar with or aware of? And my answer always was that, we just had absolute conviction about the product's ability to reduce collision force. And that's all we've ever represented. And so to condense 3 years of that study into a short overview, if I had to summarize it, what they essentially did was use Head Health Network's sensor technology, which to my understanding is the best sensor technology in the market today. It does a better job of capturing more data points, that is impact data points, and also the ability to capture them with high integrity, meaning that there's not a lot of false positive and negative impacts. Once they had a baseline threshold of force by position, they then placed a Protect over the helmets and then measured the forces. And, the numbers are in, and those numbers were that they were able, in high thresholds of force, meaning ADGs were higher, the product was able to reduce force beyond the helmet by another 70%. And the lower impact forces, those that you and I might have been more accustomed to at the line of scrimmage, from about 30 up to 80 Gs, you saw reductions of right around 50%. And so, for a protective helmet cover that's a half-inch thick, to have the chemical properties that allow that cover to reduce impact force under both high and low impact forces is a very significant breakthrough, we think, for making the game safe.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to me in studying the product and studying your company and those results of that test. If it can mitigate that type of trauma, or with that effect, that much effect, especially given some of the studies recently, that it's not so much the concussion side or the TBI, it's the repetitive blows that can be very bad on the CTE side and on the various other neurocognitive type diseases. And it's the repetitive blows. And if that's going to mitigate that to that effect, just being responsible, how can you not include this for especially starting at the lower levels of football? How can this not be included?
Well, again, we ask that question respectfully every day and the reason why I use the word respectfully, because we've done, I would say at best an average job of trying to communicate our messaging and get this word out. We're a small company, Randy, and, we don't have a large sales force. We are stepping up our effort, but we believe that we're lacking exposure and understanding. And the biggest driver here, and as it should be, I'll be quick to add, is something that you and I probably referred to when we were players for years, and that is that you can't lie to the big eye in the sky. There's a lot of perhaps teammates we had at different levels who talked about a great game that they played, and then when the coaches rolled the film, maybe it was a different story.
Yeah.
And I think it's the case here. We're trying not to hype anything. We haven't said that we've cured concussions. We've been very honest in our approach to the market, which I think eventually will resonate with a greater number of people. And particularly, as you point out, at the youth level, we're talking about, depending on what source you look at, about 4 million kids at the youth level. There's about 1.2 at the high school level. And you've got 75 to 85,000 kids at the collegiate level. There's only 1,669 guys that get to play at the NFL level, without including taxi and practice squads, as you well know. And so, we need to be more focused at the youth level. That's where we want to be. We're trying to do everything we can to effectively get that word out. And the other quick thing I would add is that you're really spot on. It is about the subconcussive issue. That's what we're more focused on. That really is part of our mission statement. And for all kinds of reasons. I mean, the cumulative effect of subconcussive collisions on the structural and functional integrity of the brain is in many ways still unknown. We're making great strides. We do know. You could Google right now. There have been at least, and I was involved on the research side in Wall Street. So there's been at least over 25 subconcussive studies, and there's different ways that people are looking to quantify or measure the relationship between subconcussive hits and guys like you and I, as we progress in age, what are the ramifications of that? And right. As you pointed out, these types of impacts can lead to neurodegenerative disease, Parkinson's, ALS. You mentioned chronic traumatic encephalopathy, Alzheimer's. This is the great work that's being done by all of our medical professionals. But we have to do our part, and we believe that a technology like ours that can lower the threshold of force will keep players safer, and that's how we want to contribute to eventually getting the game where it needs to be.
I mean, John, honestly, and I've never really understood, and I imagine it's financial, so it's probably the obvious answer, but football is one of those sports where technology and everything's a trickle down. It doesn't start at the lower ranks and make its way up like the talent. The technology trickles down from the top. But in this, the most important people are the people that have the less quantifiable studies done. The so-called junior. When you talk in sports, you talk junior level. That's basically high school football. It's got nothing to do with the kids that start at, in some areas, 8 years old, but 12 years old and 14 years old. Are there things that can be done to get this kind of product, to get this kind of help to kids that are playing in all sports at that level?
Well, that's a great question. And I'll tell you, we are really doing everything we can by way of discovery to find the right solution and the answer to that observation. I can offer some of the roads we've gone down, and maybe answer my own question and say, or my own observation, and say that we probably haven't been as successful as we need to be. But if you start with the youth level, and you're going to appreciate this, it's interesting the dichotomy between each level of play. So when you get to the youth level, you're dealing with a volunteer coaching staff and interested parents that love the game of football, that are their hearts in the right place, They're doing everything they can to create a safe environment, but they're not educated. There's nothing really uniform and structured. There are organizations like Pop Warner, and obviously a lot of the work that's being done by through our NFL and the USA, which I was associated with for a while, who are trying to teach heads-up football. This is all terrific work, but trying to mobilize this group and trying to message to this group has been a real challenge for us. We know that's where our product needs to be. And so as a result, we've had to do it brick by brick, Randy. It's been, we talked to a coach, and like recently we were up at the Chicago Land Youth Football Organization. It's represents about, 10,000 kids, and, they're ecstatic about utilizing our product. We've had some connection into the CYO leagues for the Catholic youth level of football leagues, and we've had some adoption there. But as we all said as former linemen, our work was never done, right?
Right.
And our work isn't done here. We're just getting started. High school, a little bit different. There's a lot better education. You're likely to show up at pick a high school these days, and you'll be told what helmet to wear, as an example, differently than the youth level. Some will have helmets, but a lot of parents are buying helmets for their kids. As you well know, you get to the collegiate level, and it's pretty much you're at the hands of that program and what helmet that they prefer to wear.
Mm-hmm.
And at the pro level, same situation. And there's certainly exceptions to that, depending on the concussion history or TBI history of a player. But, to stay on point to your question, I mean, we just need to be much more effective, and we need more depth in our marketing and social media effort to connect with the right voices and stakeholders and decision makers.
Well, hopefully doing stuff like this, getting stuff like this podcast and other information out there will help you guys do exactly that. John, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully we can do it again down the road, see how things are going. And good luck to you guys, and defend your head. Again, it's defendyourhead.com, and the product is ProTech. It's pretty amazing stuff. Check it out. Thanks, John. All right, thanks again.